All right, pretty good size.
See, this is fun. So, I mean, all right. So we got a smallish raise. I call it a hipster raise, right? Usually people go like, 3x in a bit or a little bit less. I'm honestly not sure why. I think that's just to confuse people with their math or like to confuse their stars helper. Don't you also have a hipster sizing, Jimmy? Or are you more of an old school guy?
No, I'm a hipster type of guy. Like I it's about like 3.11 or something. My open, so it's just over 3x.
Yeah.
It made the pot just like if I go 3x or smaller, then if I bet like small on the flop, like it's kind of weird with the stack size. So I kind of like going like 3.1 or something.
All right. Well, guys, going 3.1 or 2.9 is not going to make you rich, but raising around 3x in a small blind is generally a good strategy. So let's see. So we've got Cool, who makes it 9. Okay, that seems all right. And Xenia makes it 40 big ones. What do you think about that sizing?
I mean, a lot of people are actually doing these type of 4 bets where like, okay, they are like 270 big blinds deep, right? And now they just start 4 betting like crazy big. Like they 4 bet like 38, 40 big blinds, and it's like, I mean, in Kuleb CB shoes, like you facing that raise, you're kind of happy because he just makes your life so easy, right?
Yeah, because I mean, if Cool has like pocket sevens or something, I mean, he doesn't need to call 40 big blinds basically, right? So yeah, he can just basically he can happily just click call with the very strongest hands, but since he's getting such an awful price, he can just easily fold with the medium hands. And if you have like King 6 offsuit, of course he's folding even into a raise of 20. But you're kind of making his life too easy. I agree. So yeah, you could size up if you wanted to, but not to 40 necessarily. So
and also in Zengja shoes, I mean, like once you get deeper, you kind of want to start 4 betting like a bit, like some hands like pocket tens, pocket jacks more, and then if you just like 4 bet crazy big, I mean, it just like you're just isolating his range to be really tight for Kuleb shoes.
Yeah, I agree. That could be that could use a little bit of work. Anyway, so I have no idea. Okay, we see a call.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so Xenia bets half pot on 993. So the 9 is not really much of a concern anymore, right? Because like, what are you calling 40 big blinds with that has a 9 in it? Ace 9 suited is like an okay hand, or 10 9 suited. Those are okay hands to call 4 bets with, but not against 40 big blinds, right?
No.
So the 9 is not really irrelevant. It's not like Cooley is calling pocket 3s. So this is almost like like blank. So Xenia is going to go quite crazy, I think, basically representing aces, kings, maybe queens, and Cooley is just gonna call down and hope to see hands like ace king as a bluff, or king queen, or ace queen, maybe ace 5 suited, that type of stuff. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, this board is basically a blank, to be honest, with the sizing pre-flop. So like he should never have any 9x. So it's just a matter of like if ever like Kuleb, you can see the argument that Kuleb like will have hands like tens, jacks, queens, and he doesn't really want to see overcards, so betting half pot can potentially make sense. But I mean, like even if he has a hand like aces or kings, I mean, he doesn't need protection here. So sizing down as well is fine, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would also size down a little bit. If the board were more draw heavy, it would make a bit more sense, right? Get a little bit more value from all the good stuff you're worried about, but not on such a dry board. Anyway.
No, I mean, if if he had a hand like ace queen suited or something, I mean, you want him to peel when you have kings or aces, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, strange hand so far, but that's okay. So Kool-Aid's probably never raising here, or almost never, because I mean, what the hell does he have, right? Even if he had a hand like aces, there's no reason to raise. And the 4 is kind of the same story. I mean, the 4 doesn't improve anybody. I mean, if Xenia had a hand like ace 5 suited or ace 4 suited, I guess he improves to a pair or a gut shot. But that's still not really worth mentioning. So, if he's happy on the flop, he's happy on the turn. Now, if the turn were something like a 10 and like a jack or a queen, then maybe Kool-Aid improves to a full house, right? So that would be a bit scary. Let's see. Call again. And again, it makes sense that Cooley doesn't fast play here. I would be pretty sick if Xenia shows up with the ace-5 suited here, to be honest, right? So he there's less than half pot behind. I mean, Xenia's going to be shoving all in quite aggressively here. Because, I mean, if he has aces, kings, or maybe queens, he's just happily shipping, right? There's nothing to worry about. If he had a hand like an ace-9 suited as a bluff, he would get it in. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that, like, once he bets the turn and he calls and he has like 130 bigs left into 300 big blind pot, like I don't expect a lot of fold equity on the river here. So like if he, yep.
Go ahead.
No, it's just a matter like once he calls that big bet on the turn as well, like I'm not sure if, I mean, he can have like a hand maybe like ace queen of diamonds sometimes or ace king of diamonds sometimes as well, but like his range is going to be pretty strong, so I would be pretty careful if I was in Xenia's shoes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Let's see. All right.
Yeah.
So that's actually a little bit of a letdown, right? I would expect to at least see one crazy hand, like one like ace-7 offsuit or something crazy by Xenia maybe, but he has aces, so I mean he managed to put in a lot of money with aces on a safe board, so that's good. It's just that, you know, the sizes could be a bit better. And then Cooley calls with queens. I mean, you can't blame him, right? He might be thinking, well, I don't have a 9 in my range. You know, maybe I would call kings or aces here, so can't blame him, but I don't see the average NL100 player, and obviously I'm not dissing NL100 players. You know, we have plenty of NL100 students, and they're excellent, but I'd say the average NL100 player probably doesn't bluff off 270 big blinds here with ace-king, etc. very often, right? Or ace-queen, or, you know, like queen-jack or something like that. So, yeah, I think you can, I mean, you definitely can't fold to the 4-bet. You definitely can't fold the flop. The turn is closer, right? Because if you get bet into on the turn, you're probably getting shoved on the river, right? Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't hate if Cooley could fold turn or river. That would be impressive. I don't blame him for calling, but you know, if you look at the amount of value hands here versus the amount of times we've seen hands like, you know, queen jack just barreling 3 streets, I would say aces and kings are way more likely to be in his range. So I'll give Xenia. I'll give him a 6.5 out of 10. I thought the line itself was fine, right? Nothing wrong with it. It's just that the sizes were a bit off. But I mean, he put in 270 big blinds with aces. And I'll give Cooley a 6 out of 10, right? So like, had he shown, like, if this were a student and he'd shown me a fold, I would have given him a higher grade, not only because he's a BTS student, but also because you know, it's easier to just click call and say, fuck it, you know, I got queens, rather than say I'm going to make the tough fold that, you know, may not be pyro approved or whatever. What do you think?
I think that this is like the typical spot at low stakes. Like Xenia is always going to show up like with aces or kings, and once in a blue moon he's going to have some bluffs. Like those hands, like especially like, I mean, if I'm like, let's say 140 deep, right? Like you don't even think about it, like it's going in. This is no problem. But like once you start being like 200 deep, like 300 deep, like people just don't bluff enough, right? So like those type of hands are like, I think it's a pretty nice example that like you have to overfold versus aggression, especially once you get really deep. Yeah, pretty much. So I mean, as far as like Xenia's hand, I mean, it's not hard to play, right? Like his sizings were off, so I would give him some like, I don't know, a 7 out of 10 because his hands was kind of easy to play with. I mean, he just 4-bet, then bet shoved, and then as far as Kuleb, I think he played pre-flop fine. I think a fold on the turn is kind of nitty, but at the same time, with the sizing he made on the turn, you know, he made the pot to like 300 big blinds with 130 left. Like, I don't expect him, like you mentioned, to just bet turn and then check river.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
So like I wouldn't even mind a fold on the turns. For him, I'm gonna give him maybe like a 5 out of 10.
All right. Tough teacher, I see.
Yeah.
But you made a great point, right? I mean, that is also why we invited you for today, is because you have a lot of insight on I mean, on let's say 100L, those types of games, right? You do see that at 100L, there's, the average rank does not have the heart to just bluff it off and think, well, there's 128 left, so I'm gonna look even stronger if I shove here, and then my opponent is gonna make the fold of his life with queen. So yeah, sure, he definitely could, but I don't see the average guy doing that. So right, so what we talk about in the lab videos is not just like, oh, I just don't show you guys only Pio Sims, nor does Jimmy, right? Like show Pio Sims that like, oh, queens get called half the time, that's it. No, we also talk about how low stakes players differentiate from Pio play, right? Like how we can, for instance, in spots where we should call more, where we should call less, where we should change our bet sizes and our lines, and general mistakes they make and how to exploit it, right? So it has to be fit to your needs, right? Fit to your needs in this case for 100L, not just say we're going to look at this spot in a vacuum, because I mean you're playing against humans, right? You're not playing against Pio Solver.
No, exactly, and also like a good thing is that like a lot of the coaches were playing those games a few years ago, right? And then they see students playing it every day, so like they still have the knowledge about the pools and how they approach it and everything, and also like even with BTS, we try to build a good solid foundation with some like theory stuff, right? And then once that is built, then we try to help students and help other people to actually start thinking on how can I deviate and how can I change my game plan. But with having a solid foundation, I think that's really how you should start and how you improve the best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. First, we'll work on fundamentals, but always keep in mind who you're playing against, and not just making life a Pio Sim. Like even in life, right? There's plenty of things that in theory should be happening or should not be happening, but that doesn't mean they actually do. Or the only thing that matters is reality.
All right, pretty good side.
See, this is fun. So I mean, there's not much to say, right? Like raising to virtually 9 big blinds is not a good raise size. I don't mind raising a little bit larger when deeper, and he's deep with both these guys, which is kind of rare, right? Like being 300 big blinds deep with all the remaining opponents. So I like the idea of sizing up a bit, maybe, but not the 9 big blinds. So anyway, maybe it was a very fancy misclick. I mean, if I were sitting there as Jade Digweed, I would also be like, geez, what is my 3-bet size, right? Like I would have to think about that one for a second. So he goes for 27. Probably would still want to go a little bit larger, but I agree that you don't go like 40 or 50 or something. So, okay. It's kind of strange. Acai, easiest fold of his life. Okay, so. All right, so JD, let's call him JD. JD checks here, so he's playing a mixed strategy here, so he's saying I might be checking hands like queen sometimes, or like jack-10 suited, stuff like that, if he even plays jack-10 suited. And then he's also going to be trapping some hands like kings or aces sometimes, so, I mean, WL is looking to gamble here for sure. I mean, he just quickly pots it, so, I mean, he's just looking to gamble. He probably has something pretty decent, right? I mean, I wouldn't imagine that he just calls a 27, BB 3-bet, and just, like, pots it with absolutely nothing, with, like, 5-3 offsuit. It's hard to, if you play like that, it's hard to get 300 big blinds in the first place, but who knows, right? I mean, I've seen stuff like that before. So he pots it. Let's see what JD does. Okay, he pots. What do you think of the hand so far?
I think it's such a unique spot. Like what I was thinking is that, like, it's not like Jay Digweed, like in my opinion, is like 3-betting this guy to 28 big blind, and he's saying, okay, on king 10-8, I'm gonna play a mixed strategy here. Like, so basically what I want to say is that like his range is gonna be a bit face up. So he's gonna have like kings, and then like he's gonna have like some medium strength hands that he didn't want to bet on that particular board texture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're suggesting we could probably just range bet this one on the smaller side, right? And if this guy like spastically raises like to a gigantic size, we can just fold most likely.
Yeah. I mean, what I want to say is that like basically like he could potentially bet his entire range there, but like he probably feels that the pot is already so big that like I mean obviously when you're playing 100 NL and then the pot is already like so big on the flop, like he could basically just play his range a bit more face up, and then don't really want to bet hands like pocket nines, you know, or pocket jacks if he had those, or like ace 10 suited, those type of hands.
Sure. Yeah, I think he could probably get away with a range bet. I mean, it's not like he's 3-betting a lot of hands that don't like this board, right? Because I mean, even if he has a hand like 10 unsuited, I'm not sure really 3-bets because he cannot expect WL. I mean, WL is willing to put in 9 big blinds just by raising the button. You can't expect him to be willing to fold with 3-bet. So he's going to 3-bet quite tight here. Let's see. So I'm expecting him like queens here quite a bit.
Yeah.
For JD.
Yeah, I think it's like a lot of a made-up strategy on the flop that he did. You know, not saying like, yeah. So and then.
Yeah. So it went check on the turn. Nothing you see there. And now on the river, he pots it, basically. So he's basically saying that he checked back Queen Jack on the turn, now he got the nuts. Or he's saying that he checked back the turn with the nuts in already, like tens or kings, whatever. Or that this card helped him within, like, maybe, you know, ace king, of course, or maybe even like a really thin value, but within, like, ace queen. So, yeah. I mean, it's tough to find a bluff here, right? He would basically have to bluff with a ridiculous hand. But, I mean, this pot's already ridiculous. I mean, he called a 27 BB 3-bet, so... You know, again, he could just have 5-3 offsuit, right? It's not impossible. But it's more likely he just has a hand like ace king or ace 10 or queen jack, that type of stuff. So be interesting to see what happens here. No idea. Okay. So that hand is actually surprisingly reasonable for him to have. You know, if you're going to open big, well, ace king is worth the amount. Call the 3-bet, you know, bet big on the flop. On the turn, he's like, ooh, hold on, do I really want to risk it all? Let me check behind. Then the river is like, well, I just can't lose here. I'm just going to blast it. So, I mean, I don't know how to rate this hand. I'm not a big fan of JD's play. I'm not sure what he had here. Maybe he had a hand like ace 10 even, you know. It's kind of strange. Like king queen, I'm guessing could be in his range for sure. Yeah, I'll give JD a 6. You know, we don't know his hand, but I don't get a good feeling from this hand. I'm not a big fan of how he played it in general, even though I'm not quite sure what he had. And WL, I mean, he definitely gets a 10 out of 10 for heart. Let's make that clear. Sorry, I got to give him a 4. I was thinking like a 6 or a 7. I was like, wait, what am I saying? No, he gets a 4 out of 10. What do you think?
I think Jay Digweed, I mean, he could... Like, I'm going to give him a 5.5, and then I'm going to give WL a 5. I mean, like, both... I mean, his opening sizing is ridiculous. I mean, post-flop, I don't mind the check back on the turn. I mean, it's just, like, his sizing on the flop and river is, like, just pot-sized bets. I mean, it kind of, like, links to the pre-flop sizing, right? Like, he opened, like, 9 big blinds, and then he just spots it. But, yeah, I mean... JD, I would give him, I don't know, a 5.5, I said, and then a 5 for WL.
All right. Fair enough. Poker's dead confirmed. All right. Let's see.
I would be interested to see what he actually ended up with. Like, does he actually check calls like and like ace queen on the flop versus a pot size bet?
No chance.
So then he's going to have a hand like ace 10 or like king queen, you know?
Yeah. So, yeah, very interesting one. Let's see. I think this guy's drunk or something. He's just clicking buttons. Yeah, sure. So we've got an open raise from Mr. Instacall. All right. And a cold call by Jomir. I mean, oh, not so fast, guys. So, and King Bully squeezes. So I don't really like the flat call by Jomir. I think you should probably play 3-bet fold. The rake's a huge factor. Not to mention that you want to get fold equity, gain the initiative. Kick King Bully out of the pot, so a lot of reasons to not flat call here. And I like the fact that King Bully is likely squeezing aggressively, but the sizing could just be a bit larger, right? So, yes. I mean, like 10 big blinds. I would recommend more something like 13 big blinds rather than 10. I mean, you can go up or down a little bit if you like, but 10 is just too little. Also, like one of the reasons that you want to squeeze is that you want to kick Mr. Instacall out of the pot and get ends up with the cold call range of Jomir, right? So like if you squeeze to 10 big blinds, you're always gonna get to the flop 3-way, which is not the best case scenario. Yeah, imagine that the small blind is a bit weaker, right? Like you'd want to isolate him. You know, you don't want to play out of position to a good player. No, you want to play in position to the potentially weaker player. So you'd want to end up just kicking the other guy out of the pot. But when you give him a juicy price, then you're not going to get rid of him that easily.
No.
So all right. So anyway, live and learn. So unsurprisingly, both guys call. And we see an ace-8-5 flop, which is obviously great for King Bully because he'll have aces 100%, he'll have ace-king 100%, he'll have ace-queen suited, maybe ace-queen offsuit, he'll have hands like ace-5 suited and maybe pocket eights, and he'll have hands like king-queen of diamonds. He just has a lot of equity on this board. Now, Mr. Instacall and Jameer could definitely have an ace or a set or a flush draw, so it's not like he can go mental, but he can be quite aggressive. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good spot. I expect Mr. Instacall to have ace queen, ace jack, ace 10 suited. Like he's gonna have the sets as well, which we don't. I mean, we can have pocket eights and pocket aces, but we don't have pocket fives. So I mean, it's a good board for us. But I mean, they can still have some strong hand as well. I mean, Jomer can definitely have as well like eights and fives and hands like ace 5 suited or even ace 8 suited. Those type of hands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Maybe he's very creative and even has hands like 8-5 suited and stuff like that, 6-7 suited. Yeah. So let's see what King Bully does. I would like to see him bet small if he decides to bet. And he goes for the half pot bet, which I think is too much. He's kind of giving his opponent an easy decision. Yeah, go ahead.
Would you still like? I mean, it's not a spot, especially three-way, that we would want to bet like our entire range here. But or would you think about? No, entire range here is.
I mean, obviously, I don't want to give that away exactly, but I'll tell you that. Yeah. I'll tell you that. I mean, also remember, guys, the small blind could be a weaker player, right? So that you should take that into account. So I would recommend in general that you don't bet your entire range here. Now, it is a good board for you, so you get to bet more aggressively, but that doesn't mean like multi-way betting range is not something that happens very frequently, right? I mean, heads up, that happens more frequently. So let's say had the under the gun folded and the small blind just called the small squeeze, then if then you bet range. I'm not saying that's necessarily always the best play because it's not, but in general you could end up betting your range there. So against a recreational player, it's also a bit different, but yeah, you could have done that. I'm saying that's a strategy I would say is fine. Whereas betting half pot here with your full range, no, that's a very large mistake.
Yep.
Silence, I guess, means you agree. All right. Sweet.
No, I do agree. It's just I was just wondering with the smaller sizing because I thought that like betting your entire range would be kind of a mistake here. So yeah, maybe sizing up kind of makes sense since we're gonna bet like a more like a mixed strategy. But again, like we're giving them a bit of a easy way out once we start sizing up as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep, agreed. So, King Bully plus half pot gets called. And this 4 is not that relevant, right? Like maybe they could have like ace 4, like 6-7, maybe 5-4, but it doesn't improve that many hands in either person's range. So King Bully doesn't go for the really big bet, which is okay, I guess. He doesn't need to go huge. The board's quite dry. Okay, Jameer calls. And this card is obviously very scary for both guys because, I mean, like, Jameer can be worried about a hand like ace queen, of course. I mean, if you had a hand like ace jack, he doesn't actually mind seeing just a queen because it's less likely now that we have ace queen. So that's not too bad. But if we're in King Bully's shoes and we have a hand like ace king or a hand like ace jack, we're definitely worried about him having improved. I mean, I guess with ace jack you're already fine, but especially with ace king. Ace queen now beats you, right? And you can expect Jomer to show up with a couple of flushes. So if he were to like donk shove it in, this would be a horrible spot to be in.
Yeah. Also, like if he ever has a hand, like ace jack, for example, like it could potentially be a good card for him because like it's gonna be a pretty scary card for King Bully, right? Like how many flushes does King Bully gonna have with the ace of diamond and the queen being out there? Like maybe some like jack 10 and then king jack, but that's like few combos, right?
Yep.
And also like he has to be afraid of the ace queen. So like is he really gonna jam ace king there? So if Jomer has any ace x, one pair ace x, it's a pretty good card for him because he's not gonna be shoving his ace king or
yeah, for sure,
or better ace x.
So I was saying that it would be disgusting if he open shoved, right? In case you're king bully, you got a hand like ace king or ace jack, or even ace queen. It's not the
Yes.
even if you have ace queen, it's not. I mean, you're probably going to end up calling, but it's not a great spot, right? Because I mean, usually when recreational players take this line, I mean, they just have like a flush, they hit, and then they donk shove, or maybe they got 6-7. They're like, oh, maybe my opponent checks behind, let me just shove for him. So he shoves for a little bit under pot. King bully isn't having any of it. Wow. Okay, so Jomir called pre with ace deuce suited, which I am not a big fan of. I mean, ace deuce suited is way better than ace deuce offsuit, but it's still far too loose. And then he called a small squeeze multi-way. Again, it's too loose. You're just so dominated. You see on a board like this, right? The board seems quite innocent, right? Ace 8-5, but you're hopelessly behind. And then I understand that he called. I understand that he called on the deuce, on the 4, adding a gut shot. Yeah. But I'm still not a big fan. On the river, he actually does something very unorthodox and creative. He turns his hand into a bluff. This is something that I think you probably don't see at 100L much. Generally, when people are unknown to you, when they could be drawing and then they just lead out for huge sizing when all draws complete, that generally means they just hit it and they just want to get value. So if you see this, if you see a recreational player do this, my advice would be that you are cautious. Against a reg, maybe you can be a little bit more, loose and suspicious, right? Because they're a little bit more capable of just finding some kind of funky hands. But usually, when a recreational player does this, it's just it's a strong hand. So even though we have, as in King Bully has Ace King and he has the King of Diamonds, this is still a tough call, right? I mean, because he has one pair, he could be losing to Ace Queen. He could still lose to hand like pocket fives that just didn't want to raise, or of course he could lose to a flush. Having the King of Diamonds is really good, obviously, in the sense that you block some flushes and there's not a whole lot left. But maybe Jomir just has random like 6-5 of diamond type of hands too. Yeah, right? No, he could. There. I mean, if he has ace deuce, he could definitely still have 6-5 and that type of stuff. So yeah, it's a really tough call. I would say King Bully squeeze sizes, the c-bet size could be improved a little bit. I would actually say you could fold river. I mean, I'm not saying if you ever play against me, hey, just dunk, shove, and I'll fold. That's not what I'm saying. But when I see like an unknown potential recreational player do this, I would definitely be careful. And I think folding could be the right play. Because, I mean, how often do you see a recreational player turn his hand into a bluff or like a hand like sixes versus just, having Jack 10 of diamonds and get, just shoving? I would say that happens more often, right?
Yes. Yes. And also like he's not shoving only flushes. Like he's going to have like other 2-pair hands that is gonna jam here because he expect villain to be like, I see this many times, like people just like he's gonna like, let's say he has ace 4, maybe not ace 4, but let's say he had pocket 5 or so, like something strong like that. He can potentially just jam it here because he expect villain to just be checking back.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'll be careful here. Anyway, I like King Bully's. I don't mind King Bully's line, but it could be polished a little bit. I'll give him a 7 out of 10. And Jomir, I'll give him a 4 out of 10. Definitely 9 out of 10 on the river for heart, right? It's like an interesting creative play, but the hand selection just isn't there. So what do you think?
I think the King Bully, I'll give him the same thing, like 7 out of 10. But I think Jomir, like I'm going to be pretty hard on him. I'll give him a 3.5 because I think like pre-flop is just like such a huge mistake, and then that's the kind of like the thing is that like you're 150 big blinds deep, right? And that's the type of spot you get in trouble because it all became it's all because of the cold call pre-flop, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a really big mistake. And then I mean I don't mind the call on the flop and on the turns. Yeah, okay. So I'm gonna once he calls, I think. And then he dunk jams the river. I think I'm gonna upgrade my score to 4.5.
Wow. All right. Tough as always. So